Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Radical Moderate. In the last video, what we did is we went over the Democratic platform's main goals and visions. Today, what we want to do is we want to dive into the Republican Party platforms. What do Republicans stand for? What are the key issues that matter most to their voters? Whether you're looking to learn more about the party's priorities or just here to understand a little bit about this big picture, I'm going to try to explain it as I see it. So let's get started. The Republican Party platform is primarily driven by conservative principles. Now, these are principles that emphasize individual freedom, limited government, and a free market economy. Republicans believe that the role of government should be small as possible and that personal responsibility, economic opportunity, and strong national defense are key to successful societies. These are somewhat in contrast to what the Democrats believe. They want the government's role to expand to help address citizen issues. But for now, let's just break down some of the core issues that define the Republican platform. Like with the Democratic platform, I've tried to parse these issues under 7 different bins. So let's go over each one of them. Limited government and economic policies. First, let's talk about limited government, one of the fundamental beliefs in the Republican platform. Republicans argue that government should interfere as little as possible in people's lives and businesses.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
They believe that when the government gets too big, it stifles innovation, restricts freedoms, and it also burdens the economy with unnecessary regulations. Republicans are strong proponents of free market capitalism, meaning that they believe in letting the economy operate with minimum government interference. They support lowering taxes for individuals and businesses, arguing that lower taxes stimulates economic growth by allowing people to keep more of their earned money and also encouraging businesses to invest and create jobs. You'll often hear Republicans pushing for tax cuts, particularly for middle-class families and corporations, as part of their economic policy. Now, their belief is that more people keeping their own money allows more money to be exchanging hands, which is really the engine of economics based on the libertarian and the Austrian school of economics. Healthcare reform and free market solutions. Now, when it comes to healthcare, Republicans believe in a system driven by free market principles rather than government-run programs. They argue that healthcare decisions should be in the hands of individuals and families, not bureaucrats. We saw that play out during the recent pandemic. The state's medical policies tended to divide along the same ideological lines as these two parties. Republicans generally oppose government programs like the Affordable Care Act, also known as the Obamacare, because they believe that these programs increase costs, limit choice, and reduce the quality of care. Instead, Republicans advocate for repealing or replacing the ACA with market-based solutions such as health savings accounts and allowing also insurances to be sold across state lines to increase competition and reduce costs. The basic idea here is that competition will drive down prices and increase innovation, giving individuals more options for their healthcare. Whether these policies can control price increases in a procedure-based health system where incentives are constantly aligned for healthcare providers to do more procedures rather than less procedures is not clear. National security and a strong military. Another major focus of the Republican platform is national security and defense. Republicans believe in maintaining a strong military to protect America's interests at home and abroad. They often advocate for increasing defense spending to ensure that the U.S. military remains the most powerful and advanced in the world. In foreign policy terms, Republicans tend to prioritize an America First approach, focusing on protecting U.S. sovereignty and renegotiating international agreements that they believe are unfair or detrimental to the country's interests. This could mean taking some tough stances on issues like immigration, trade, and global conflicts to ensure that American values and securities are preserved. It's important to say that this America First approach is really a recent phenomenon or a development in the Republican Party. Historically, providing an international defense umbrella was a given for the U.S. foreign policy. This was a bargain that was really made in the Bretton Woods Agreement in exchange for being able or be given the privilege of having the international oil sales tied to the U.S. dollar, a significant source of U.S. hegemony around the world that's worth its own little video at some point down the line. Immigration and border security. Now, speaking of immigration, Republicans are really strong advocates for securing the nation's border and enforcing immigration law. The Republican platform emphasizes the need for strong border security to prevent illegal immigration, human trafficking, and drug smuggling.
We're going to make them pay for that wall. Now, the wall is $10 billion to $12 billion if I do it. If these guys do it, it'll end up costing $200 billion.
One of the most well-known positions in recent years has been the push to build a border wall along the southern U.S. border. Republicans also support a merit-based immigration system, meaning that they want to prioritize immigrants who have skills that can contribute to the economy and who enter the country legally. They are generally opposed to policies that provide amnesty or pathways to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, arguing that this would reward illegal behavior. The Democrats charge that the U.S. is really a land of immigrants, and immigration should continue. Here, I feel where we draw the line is really lost in semantics between the party extremes on both sides. Second Amendment rights and gun ownership. Now, let's talk about the Second Amendment, which is really a cornerstone of the Republican platform. Republicans strongly defend the right to bear arms and oppose most forms of gun control. They believe that the Second Amendment protects individual freedoms. They ensure that the citizens can defend themselves, their families, and their properties with this amendment. Republicans typically oppose stricter efforts to restrict, gun control laws, such as, for example, banning certain types of firearms or imposing more extensive or expansive background checks, arguing that these measures infringes on the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens. An interesting perspective is the importance of free speech through the First Amendment, a cause that's really important to both party moderates. It has been really argued by some that the Founding Fathers wrote the Second Amendment in order to protect the First Amendment. The Second Amendment is really constitutional, like anything else we'll be basically discussing on this channel. The question really is, where do we draw the line? I mean, if citizens have the right to bear arms, what constitutes an arm? And when does it really go beyond the intended goal of the law? Traditional values and social issues. Now, Republicans are also known for advocating traditional values. This often influences their positions on social issues like family, religion, as well as education. Many Republicans oppose abortion and support policies that protect the rights of the unborn. They call themselves pro-life. But exactly when life begins and, what are practical implications regarding body autonomy and choice are not clear and the subject of reasonable controversy between these two parties. They also place a very high value on religious freedom, arguing that people should be free to practice their faith without any government interference. This often includes opposition to government mandates that conflict with religious beliefs, such as certain healthcare requirements. On education, Republicans support school choice, which means giving parents the ability to choose where their children go to school, whether that's really a traditional school, public school, charter school, or even homeschooling. They argue that competition in education can improve quality and give families more control over their children's education. This is not a Democratic policy who believes strongly in public schools and public education. Limited regulation and deregulation. Republicans believe that reducing regulation is essential for economic growth and innovation. They argue that too much government regulation stifles businesses, making it harder for them to grow and also to create jobs. One of the primary goals of the Republican platform is to roll back regulations, particularly in industries like energy, finance, as well as manufacturing. Republicans believe that deregulation helps small businesses thrive, create jobs, and also stimulates the economy by allowing businesses to operate more freely. Some argue that increasing regulations leads into barriers for growth, with kind of gatekeepers being government bureaucrats that can be corruptible. These kinds of regulations lead to stifling innovation and leading to government corruption. Clearly, we all know that some regulation is clearly necessary to safeguard consumers from predatory practices by big companies or even neglectful entities. After all, none of us really want to find out that the meat that we ate as a family dinner was tainted with E. coli, and then ban the supermarket that gave it to us after some of our loved ones have already died of food poisoning. So once again, the argument lies on where do we draw the line for too much regulation versus too little. This is really an ongoing battle like the ones that, like all the other topics that I mentioned before. To sum it up, the Republican Party platform is really built around the principles of limited government, personal responsibility, free markets, and also a strong national defense. Republicans believe that by reducing government interference and promoting individual freedoms, Americans will have more opportunities to succeed and thrive. Just like the Democratic Party, the term Americans here is the conjecture, and it applies to what the Republicans believe is a universal value for all. So these are just some of the key issues that matter to Republican voters. If these values tend to align with your own, and if you're looking to understand a little bit more about the party platform, staying informed is clearly the first step. So thank you so much again for watching, and if you found this video helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll be getting into a little bit more detail in some future videos on this broad topics covered by the two party platforms, and what are the opposing extremes and where might be the middle ground between these two extremes. So stay tuned for those videos. Thanks again, and until the next video, let's work together to save this country.